You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
So today we are talking about one of the most controversial DC writers ever, but he's one of the ones that arguably gets these characters really well. And he's one of the he's the writer that Snyder borrowed a lot from in his universe, and you'll see that later. We're talking about Frank Miller, the arguably the creative that saved Batman first off. So there's that. So let's get started on this. So, by the way, I have this beautiful panel from Dark Knight 3, which is an extremely underrated book. More on that later. So, Britt, begin this discussion. So tell us about Frank Miller and his universe.
Okay, so Millerverse, or Frank Miller's Dark Knight's Return, is Earth 31 within the multiverse of DC. But he didn't want it in the multiverse anymore because, of course, how DC does, they will take any creation and ruin it. So
That's so true.
So he didn't want it within the multiverse, but you can see that writers still tend to use still try to write those characters. Peter Tomasi.
Oh God.
He wanted Carrie Kelly to be in Batman and Robin New 52. And Frank was like, no. So yeah, I don't know when that really became a solidified thing of him really saying no to his universe being in the multiverse. I would say maybe when Carrie Kelly was introduced in Batman and Robin. But yeah, so you can call it Millerverse. That's what it's known for. And it's basically a world that is very realistic in a very exaggerated way, very dark. And as I see it, it's his Batman's perspective. His Batman is a little bit on the psychotic side, a little bit.
That's an understatement.
He's darker, but you feel the emotion, in the trauma that he goes through. And it starts off with this Dark Knight Returns is the first. Then he goes back to Batman Year One. Then you have it's all out of order, but the correct order, I believe, is Batman Year One, Superman Year One.
Okay.
Then All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder.
It's a long title.
Yes, it is. And then Batman, The Dark Knight Returns.
Well, don't forget The Last Crusade.
That, I believe, is in between. I did not know where that goes. I think it goes.
I think it's before. I think it's after Boy Wonder, because I think in this universe, Grayson was still the first Robin.
Okay, so Last Crusade, then it Returns, then it Strikes Again. Then, of course, Master Race, Golden Child, and hopefully soon it will be the fourth installment.
Which I can't wait for that one. That's going to be dope. But yeah, so all in all, it's actually a pretty solid continuity. And, it's kind of funny. It doesn't contradict itself as much as the regular DC universe. So
right.
It's astounding.
Even with going back and forth, like this goes before that, however long it took for this certain installment to come out, yes, it's still very organized. um, you're basically like filling in the blanks, even with um, the older stuff, or within the timeline. You can fill in the blanks easily. However, with All Star, Batman and Robin, Jim Lee and Frank Miller, interesting that they actually met up, I think about 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so in the comments it was like, so is this when All Star, the rest of it is going to start, coming about. Um and yeah, it will be more of filling in the blanks of this universe that like I
Now,
said,
I,
it's exaggerated, but it's still so much that can be told.
it's good. I just had a thought. Now, this will never happen. What if the DC Ultimate Universe is this?
That would be
It
hilarious.
would be hilarious. It would cause people on Twitter. I can't stand the Twitter people that go like, oh, I hate the Dark Knight Returns and stuff, and I wish it never came out. And I'm like, if it never came out, chances are the Batman character would not be the way you enjoy it today. I got news for you.
Honestly, a lot of stuff that, just like Kingdom Come and Dark Knight, is these storylines are controversial,
Mm-hmm.
but they have the quote unquote darkness to them, but they resonate and they get the attention
Mm-hmm.
of the audience because they are, in a sense, trying to be realistic, have
Mm-hmm.
the characters go into um the gray areas instead of just this black and white. You know, when you know that, okay, of course, the day is going to be saved. We're tired of that. Give us some drama, give us some controversy, and we'll stay invested. So that is what Frank Miller, and he's very open about his politics and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Kingdom Come, I mean, that was more so like a commentary on the 90s darkness,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it still resonates because when I don't like it that now the narrative is shifting to it supposedly being like this dark timeline of evil Superman. Kingdom Come Superman was never evil.
No,
They,
no.
yes, they walk the fine line of making like these sacrifices and these very, I would say, hard. They are hard decisions. The like the prison thing or whatever that they had the anti-heroes and villains locked up in. I mean, in that perspective though, they did what they had to do to save the world. They had no choice. You have these anti-heroes, running around making it worse, that they are acting like villains, so they needed to be punished in a sense. Um, but no, Kingdom Come is not an evil timeline or whatever. That Superman was never evil. Diana was never evil. She's not like Injustice. Um, Diana, she's the one. Kingdom Come, Diana is the one that brought him back to being the hero that he's supposed to be.
If anything,
Um,
I remember at the end of that, she even brought him the glasses, thereby resurrecting the Clark Kent persona.
exactly. So yeah, the whole narrative shift is it, it gets on my nerves, and it's really like, so what do you want? It with the writers now, it's so mediocre. It's like they want to play safe and they want to tiptoe over things and just cater to the Twitter X fans that want happy go lucky all the time. But then when they realize that happy go lucky isn't selling, they complain
Yeah.
and they want to put up polls or tweet saying like, how do we get more fans, how do we get people into the comic shops. It's like, well, if you're not alienating fans, if you're not saying, well, if you don't like this version, you're not a real fan, that type of thing, Um, and if you aren't catering to a certain group that obviously is not supporting your books, maybe you can have a chance at having some new fans again.
Exactly. And that's my issue a lot of the times when a lot of these creatives play the victim saying, "Oh my gosh, no one buys comics. How do we get people to buy comics? If you like this version, you suck."
Yeah, that whole thing is just like, and the thing is, with New 52, again, it was controversy because it wasn't your grandpa, even though honestly, Post Crisis isn't, I mean, it's not really your grandpa version anyway, because I don't think anyone at that time has their grandpa in like 1986. So for that time, I mean, hey, unless you had like you was maybe 15 having kids, maybe. But yeah, I don't think 1986 was not when these characters were created. And that is the problem with these post-crisis fans, is that they think that their version is the very first version and the only version.
And the definitive version. That's why here's the thing. I put out a video like last year or so that was about there is no definitive version of any of these characters. There is just the version that you like. Because when you're talking about a publisher that reboots every now and then has like thousands of different versions of these characters, there is no definitive version.
Right. I mean, that is pretty much what the multiverse is, because if you have a definitive version of these characters, it's going to get boring and repetitive. So you have to put them in different situations. You have to, just again, these characters can be in different genres, in different settings, different times, very multifaceted type characters, relationships, and it's unique storytelling. And sometimes it's extreme to where it doesn't resonate with an audience, and then you're like, okay, this certain concept, this certain character version, or this certain character isn't working, so shelve it. But then when you have a concept that, yeah, it might be controversial, but at the same time it brings in that attention, and all publicity, whatever, is good publicity when you're getting people interested. Just like the Crisis movie. I mean, 40 seconds, people just went ballistic, busting arteries because of a 40-second clip that really had really the overall, story
Very
for
little impact on the story of the movie.
exactly. I mean, and then the fact that you can tell that these people aren't watching the films, because within the Justice Society film, well, the producers actually, they feel that that is a Wonder Woman movie, which, yeah, I
Kinda
mean,
is.
she was the main character, along with Barry. So yeah, the Wonder Woman film, she was the inspiration for her Superman. And at the end, when Steve kicked the bucket, uh they had like this little moment, and that pretty much, if they were to have had like another JSA movie, you would have saw we would have seen that relationship develop. And then so it would have made more sense in the Crisis movie, but even the producers had admitted that they didn't have the time. They know that they skipped a lot, but they basically prioritized the stuff that they wanted to get out. So yeah, Clark and Diana's relationship within the Tomorrowverse as Earth 2 versions was somewhat of a priority in a sense, one of the elements.
It's nice to
So
know. It's nice to know SuperWonder was a priority to DC at one point.
yeah, um, So yeah, and just because they are different versions, they aren't the main Tomorrow uh verse versions. I mean, that Diana, we haven't seen her. She was only mentioned. But that Clark, Earth One Clark, he's out of nowhere with Lois.
Hmm.
So, you have that at least. But as someone complained that Clark and Diana of Earth 2 shared a kiss before, and, dialogue and that whole relationship development before Clark and Lois. Like, well, you get what you get, whatever.
How does it
Um,
feel? Exactly.
yeah, exactly. How does it feel when even in the previous animated Tuckerverse, you had Clark and Diana developing a relationship, and then they cut it for a relationship that had no build up whatsoever. It was just for that particular storyline.
And what's funny is that I talked to a buddy of mine, and he is a Clark and Lois shipper, but he's a reasonable one. Even when I told him what Sam Liu told me about the reasoning behind that, they said like, well, the death of Superman is really also a Lois story. He said, no, it's not.
Yeah, they tried to find
Funeral for a friend and like Rain, yes. Death, no.
they tried to find reasons, to make Lois important,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they end up throwing other characters under the bus, and a lot of revisionist history there of any story, you know. Yeah, even with that, knowing the character, the story is, yeah. I haven't read Death of Superman like as a full out whole thing because I really don't care for it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the only thing that I've seen people say or is that it's just an all out brawl.
It's
And
literally just a cover to cover fight. That's what it is.
and then she's like in the way at some point where like the art is wonky, but I guess it fits for that time. But if you see it now, it's a little weird. Um, so she's in the way,
As
and
usual.
right, and it's very just a fight, and I really do not care for that. It's just basically who can hit the hardest,
Mm-hmm.
and then he dies or whatever, goes into hibernation, um comes back, and really the story itself though was a gimmick. It is known to be a gimmick to try to get
Yeah.
readers to care about
And
Superman
guess
again.
what? DC was 100% like direct on that to the point where my favorite moment in the DC documentary where Carlin's like, yeah, I didn't kill Superman. You guys did. I love that moment because it's like, yeah, 100% true. How could you kill him? I didn't. You created the situation. But speaking of like all out brawls, then we have, so we're going to start off with the most, I think, influential stories for Batman and really Superman in a way that's been written in the comic book medium because remember before this book came out before the 89 movie, and this with the 89 movie brought basically brought Batman back to his dark roots because previously it was like the Adam West show and Silver Age crazy Batman. So then we have
Yeah.
the Dark Knight Returns, which by the way I happen to have picked up from my LCS, this older trade from 1986.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I picked up for actually pretty cheap, so I figured I'd show that off. So, yeah, so Dark Knight Returns, which by the way has one of the best animated adaptations of all time. And this is, if you want to see what Ben Affleck's Batman was based on, it's basically this.
Yeah. Well, first with the animated movie, that is when DC actually had money to
Yeah.
put into animation,
Yeah,
so they were
it's no
able to.
Tomorrowverse movie.
Yeah, they were able to have the budget and to replicate the animation.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I believe that, well, you had Bruce Timm, of course, as producer. Um, so of course you're not gonna have the sequels because what the sequels have is Superman and Wonder Woman together.
Yeah, it's very clearly not Wonder Bat, Tim.
So you aren't going to have, you know, is cutting that down the scenes within the comics. So it wouldn't be a movie if you didn't have that certain scene. Um, but yeah, the fight between Clark and Bruce here is interpreted in, of course, a very negative way. That either side, is very childish and annoying. You have Batman fans feeling like Batman can beat up anyone. And then you have Superman fans basically blaming Frank Miller for Superman's perception. Like, no, um, Superman has already had this perception, and but at the same time, it is poetic in a sense because while Superman was turning, kind of going downhill in popularity because of, I guess, just that change of his of not being the more tough guy. They tried to change him to be just this American Boy Scout and the a little pushover. That trend started, and then you have Batman, which is Batmania, coming forth and becoming more of, the darker character, the more mysterious character that people were starting to gravitate to. And yeah, so he basically knocked down Superman and became that top dog of DC. So yeah, that is understandable to think of it that way, but that's not the story being told, though.
No, it's not. The and what's interesting about it is that I remember how many times that like Superman tells Bruce, "Hey, I don't want to do this, dude." Subtextually knowing how the story actually turns out, I wonder if he's trying to like drop a hint, like, Bruce, this isn't me. I kind of need you to work with me here. I can't like I have to do this because otherwise people very close to me are gonna get hurt.
Exactly that. And the one thing that Tom King kind of did within the latest issue of Wonder Woman is when she was going against the Wonder Girls and her and Donna was playing Injustice.
It's basically
And
injustice, yeah.
yeah, and Diana chose Clark and Donna chose Bruce. And I guess Donna thought that, with choosing Batman, she was going to win. Not only was Diana a novice in playing video games, but it's also the fact that, just in that concept of Batman with prep time, he can beat Superman. So Diana basically says that she doesn't understand it herself, and maybe Clark doesn't either, but it's the fact that Clark holds back. He does it for Bruce, and but at the same time, Diana's like, you know, as a friend or whatever, he needs to get brought down. He needs to be humbled. And it would be Clark to humble him. But for some reason, writers they don't want that. They don't want Clark to be, and he wouldn't, be like this god or whatever. He wouldn't be um perceived honestly as a tyrant if he put Batman in his place. It wouldn't be like that. But what they want though is that this character that represents basically like a teenage boy fantasy. He's a billionaire. He's they say peak human, as far as being like this knowing martial arts, this dressed up like a bat, a little psychotic, um,
A little.
the playboy persona, and he's beating down these these beings who have power. And then the main one that's supposed to represent DC, for what it was, you beat him to be now Batman is, the representation of DC.
Which it's funny because in a later book, I don't know if it Strikes Again or Master Race, but Superman like annihilates a bunch of Kryptonians, and then Bruce is like, "Oh no, Clark actually let me win that one time."
Yeah, it's Master Race. Yeah, and that is the thing. I think that if these stories, had the chance to come out a little bit earlier, like if it was, a little bit more consistent, and then you would have gotten the full picture a long time ago to where these debates wouldn't be. But then again, maybe the debates needed to be because that's what keeps things interesting. Yes, fanboys are, overdramatic, exaggerate things, but at the same time, it's still when you have a civil debate conversation, having fun, it is fun to have these characters, go against each other or whatever, even though by logic, Clark would win.
Clark would
But
destroy Batman.
exactly. But being who he is, he lets him win.
Yeah, there was this great moment in it was Tom King's Superman book, Up in the Sky, when when he saves this little girl, the little girl asks him, "Who would win, you or Batman?" And then Clark goes, "Batman," and she goes, "Why?" And he goes, "Because it would mean so much to him."
Yeah, see that is the
So good.
whole thing really is basically that. If you keep that type of mindset, it wouldn't be, this real just downright, like I said, childish type debate,
Mm-hmm.
and so much toxic like perspectives of these characters, especially with the Batman fandom
Mm-hmm.
are very toxic in thinking that Batman can beat everyone. He is supposed to have all the DC females, all
Yeah,
over him.
he's supposed to be the playboy. The funny thing about the whole Batman doesn't use guns thing is that we actually had this debate on Twitter once, and and then someone goes, "Batman's not supposed to use guns," and then I brought up 5 different stories when Batman uses guns like this, or when Batman kills people. Because I'm sorry, when he shoots that one mutant and the dude goes, "Believe me, I'll do it," and then Batman shoots him with a machine gun, and he goes, "I believe you," that person's dead. That I guarantee you that person is dead.
And and that's the thing is that these Batman has used a gun before. I know it's that he wouldn't use a gun because of his parents, but there has been iterations where he does end up using it, and it just really, like I said, to keep these characters interesting, you have to put them in a position of going within the gray area of, what they or what's written to say they're never going to do. But
Mhm.
at the same time, it's like you have to have these characters do that certain thing to see how as a writer you can have them overcome it.
Yeah,
How,
it's like when they say a Batman wouldn't kill. Well, well, you're limiting yourself on some interesting stories you could tell. Because what if Batman does? This is what Gotham War should have been. Batman should have like accidentally killed people, and then the Bat family is like, "Hey, listen, Bruce, we gotta take you in, or like you it got to stop right now because you killed someone. We want to make sure this doesn't happen again." And then Batman's like, "I can't stop. I'm Batman." The city collapses, and then that leads to the Bat Family Civil War. But then instead, we got the crappy Gotham War story. Mm.
that was only like Batman and Catwoman having like a non-marital marital spat.
It was so stupid. Like, what the hell is that? So, speaking of Batman Catwoman, as a matter of fact, then we have Batman Year One, which is actually interesting that this. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but originally this was just the Batman origin, the post-crisis Batman origin. It was later that they decided, let's have this serve double duty. This will be the origin of post-crisis Batman and the Dark Knight Returns Batman.
Yes, it was. It was, which honestly, I guess because it was so good, and it's like it. That's the thing about Batman, and what I said earlier about these characters being multifaceted. It's some elements that Batman can have that you can place in, different continuities, different, and it all makes sense as one character, but different. He's one character, the same character, but different.
Mm-hmm.
With Superman and Wonder Woman, there's so many drastic type, thoughts on who they should be, where you have to have them separated in entities, and yeah, they are just compartmentalized in just this version is this version is this, and that is why Superman and Wonder Woman's fandoms are so divided. Superman fans, you have post crisis is a real deal because he's a Boy Scout. He's this self righteous
Even
preachy.
though post crisis Clark killed Zod multiple times.
Yeah, you have that. Um, they don't even know about Golden Age Superman. They just think
No.
that you know Golden Age doesn't even exist to them. Then you have New 52, which is a modernization of Golden Age, and they just think, oh, he's just this brute. He's trying to be like Batman. And it's like, okay, yeah, honestly, y'all have not read any Golden Age because Golden Age Superman actually inspired the Batman that you know, think that you know.
In a way, yeah, exactly.
Um,
It's like with Rebirth, they're like, this is the Superman we want. It didn't sell.
right. And then you have Wonder Woman, where ironically you have James Gunn being asked, do you like the bloody warrior version or uh the ambassador of peace? And honestly, Diana's both. Um, she's she's nice, she's an inspiration. She's a woman, and women were nurturing, all of that. But then when you get on my nerves, when hit that nerve, you will be dealt with.
It's I love that you will be dealt with. There's this paradigm in world politics that I learned about in school that's called feminism, and it's the idea that if there were more women in leadership roles globally all over the world, that there would be more peace. And then my teacher was like, "Have you met women?"
No, I mean, no, not necessarily. You will not have peace. No.
No,
Um,
no.
it will be just as chaotic.
Mhm.
Um, I think that you will have a little bit, okay, if you try to, feminism is about equality, and that is what Wonder Woman represents. That is what her relationship with Clark represents. Um, is gender equality. If we had that of, you know, people putting their heads together, of people like listening to each other, hearing out ideas and stuff, yeah, maybe that would be a little bit peaceful. But just saying that this certain gender or whatever ruling and, being in certain positions, no, that's not the answer either. So, yeah, with Diana, she is very much both a warrior and an ambassador of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a complexity about that. And I liked that Tom King kind of understood that.
Mm-hmm.
He said it in an overcomplicated way,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, yeah, it is a little bit of a contradiction, but it's a balanced contradiction, you
Well,
know.
it's like George Washington used to say, I think it was George Washington, that in order to promote peace, you have to be prepared for war, and that's basically the general idea of Wonder Woman. Is that yes, she is a warrior. She is a warrior for peace. The thing is, sometimes the warrior has to take over.
And that is why I loved the concept. Well, I would say Soul. He really
Mm-hmm.
put a perspective of her being the goddess of war, and it said no, she wasn't trying to um, create war. What she wanted to do was prevent war, understand it to prevent it,
Yeah,
and
Tomasi.
yeah, and then he also placed her as the goddess of peace too. So
Mm-hmm.
that was like a balance that no, just because her title is goddess of war, it doesn't mean that she's creating war. She's happy-go-lucky going, like I said earlier, decapitating
Mm-hmm.
people, want to fight. No, is more so just understanding it to find different ways to not have war, to stop the wars, to and the thing is, if it was that easy, the world as a utopia, we wouldn't have the stories. So, like I said, it's a very complex, complicated um, thing to just try to simplify, and but at the same time, it's a very challenging and creative way of exploring with these characters. So yeah, Batman, you can have him in. I think that Jason Aaron, he's doing an off-world story of
Mm-hmm.
Batman. Like, well, he's off-world, and
It's like early
that
in
is
Batman's career, I think.
and that kind of story should be what Superman is doing. Yes, we had Philip um
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy's story, uh
World.
Warworld. That was great, but there needs to be more with Superman. I mean, he is not just Metropolis. He's a global hero. He's a universal hero. Put him in different settings. Put him in different, even with being with Diana, he can go toe to toe with the gods. Diana, she
And he
can
did,
go
and it was glorious.
exactly. Diana, she can. Yes, she has the mythology, the Greek mythology, but also she's a mythical, fantasy type character. Clark is too. Um, but she's also within science, sci-fi too.
That's
So
why I love that book so much, the Sewell book, because what it did was it took the two characters. First off, if you didn't like Superman being like angsty or like the way he was in like the Action Comics or the New 52 Superman book, that's fine. He acted most like what you would think of when you think of Superman in that book. So that was the first thing. That's why I think a lot of people, even though they hate the New 52, like that book because they act relatively like each other. But my point is, Sewell really highlights how these characters complement each other. Like you said, how like in a way he's a god, but he's kind of like a science fiction god. Diana is like a goddess, but she's also a part of science fiction. He wants to like embrace all about being Superman. She wants to embrace being Diana, so they aid each other in doing that.
yeah, and that really gave so much story because the characters are learning and growing. You're putting them in what you think that they couldn't fit in. And that's the thing is that, of course, Twitter X, whatever, they would say, oh, Superman and Wonder Woman are too similar or they're too different. Okay, which one is it? Obviously, it's neither. It's that they have the similarities and they have the differences where you can combine it all, and Diana can fit in Clark's world and Clark can fit in Diana's world.
I
They
mean,
can
hell,
both.
here's the thing: the people that say they're too different are the same people that when you tell them Wonder Bat doesn't work, they say, "Of course, opposites attract." I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
you just told me that doesn't work, so pick one.
Yeah, that double standard, it's goal pushing the goalpost, and also just the double standards of, you know, that's why when they complain, it's kind of like, what are you complaining for? What actually can you say to give you this disdain or whatever for a certain concept? And when they ask like, why is DC, putting Superman and Wonder Woman together again? It's like, well, obviously someone, within DC knows that the concept works. That is why it has been um
Adapted in virtually every
yeah,
Elseworlds. That's the thing. Every
exactly.
single Elseworlds where where he's not with Lois, he's with Diana.
Yeah, and it's been a thing even within the main universe.
Hmm.
They've had those feelings,
And
post
remember,
crisis.
it's kind of funny whenever he's like in a situation that like is supposed to show him like his innermost desire, like with the Black Mercy plant. It's never Lois, it's always Diana or Lana, but mostly Diana.
Yeah, and even with his most vulnerable moments too, of like really down and out, it's Diana that he goes to for comfort, for to talk to him. And that's what happened in post crisis. That is why the Superman and Wonder Woman fandom grew so much within. Yeah, you had the fans that were pre-crisis, but post-crisis really showed them as basically like best friends with benefits.
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
they were. um
I imagine working with Diana, Clark has taken a lot of cold showers.
yeah, honestly, for me, I call them bestie bays because that's
That's
what they
good.
act like.
I love
Or
the I love how you like label stuff, Brit. It's always a new thing. I love that.
thank you. We gotta have fun with this.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
and that is what Clark and Diana's relationship really, it it sets. They not only set trends, but they also go along with trends. You
Hmm.
know, power couple. Power couple was not. You heard it every once in a while, especially with celebrity couples, but you really didn't start having that power couple, the whole, marquee for captions and stuff until New 52, Superman and Wonder Woman. Or
Hmm.
even the, I am his, her, Superman and Wonder Woman, that whole quote. That
Hmm.
wasn't a thing until New 52, and when people were going to Hot Topic. And Hot Topic is a store that follows trends. And one of the biggest trends was Superman and Wonder Woman constantly. So yeah, when I have these certain, labels for things, it
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 works.
naturally flows. Yeah, it works. So going back to
Hmm.
this, well, Batman, he can follow the trends too. Every year, every, decade, he changes, but he changes naturally to stay within his character. He doesn't have a drastic reboot like Superman and Wonder Woman. And just like with New 52, you can have Batman with his history and it flows because there's just this one. Batman fans have this like one perception of Batman where as long as he has his playboy persona, if he's
He's got
beating
to
up,
have every woman on the Justice League throwing themselves at him, even if it's degrading to the female character.
and as long as he's like the Bat God and
Mhm.
stepping over the men of the Justice League, putting them in their place or whatever. That's all they care for. So it's easier to have Batman in certain stories, and because they will buy it as long as Batman's name is on it.
Exactly, and that's what those charts that you sent me reflected. That hey, at least Superman is in the top 5 books, so at least that's a small little victory. But were we really surprised that Batman's in the top 5? Really
And even
surprised?
and honestly, even with Superman being in the top 5, it's only because of the relaunch of,
Hmm.
you know, it's still within basically the novelty of a relaunch.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say it's an accomplishment, but I wouldn't really call it that because, like, of course, you have this, um, shiny new, still shiny, uh, new book. But all the other books of Superman, like Superman Lost, like Steelworks or John's book, um, any other spinoff that he has, debuts below the rank 50. Now, what's really accomplishment for now, and I will only say that because Tom King is a controversial writer, so it's kind of like it's his name that's kind of keeping Wonder Woman's book afloat, but more people are saying like it's boring. It's kind of a slow.
There
Um,
hasn't been a lot of action, and that's the thing. It's
and
like
then
you, to a degree, you can have books that have minimal action, but not when it's like one of the Trinity.
yeah, and then you have where it's not in Diana's perspective,
It's
and
mostly in the Sovereign. Now, I will say there are fantastic moments in that book, like when she's helping that terminally ill boy.
oh yeah,
Like, okay, you know what? And that tells me he gets the character. That's the. It's not like he doesn't understand Diana. He does, which is why I keep with the book because I'm like, I see these small moments, and I'm like, okay, if he can nail Superman and Wonder Woman, he doesn't even have to like put them in a relationship. But if he doesn't degrade anything, I will. I said this last week on the show. I will 100% be staying with this book.
right. Well, the only thing that we have right now is March, his sneak peek of it where they hug, and it looks like a very warm, hug or whatever. But yeah, if he can like
If he can stick to land,
respect
that's the problem. This is Tom King. He is a gamble.
exactly, if he can respect their relationship, and even with it just being a platonic relationship, that is what we love about them is that yeah, they are best friends. Even though they have a little romantic feelings, underneath, it's still more so of that best friend though,
Yep,
that
there you
that
go.
that relationship that we really root for.
Yep.
Um, but the way he is, people are going to talk. And I think that is why the Wonder Woman book is basically at a stall, at least within rank 20 and 21. Um, only being well on this fifth issue, so we can't really know how good this book is until maybe I'll say the second arc, maybe say issue 15 or something like that. Then we can say, okay, yes, this is successful.
Which, if it is, hey, great. That's totally fine. It's about time Wonder Woman had a successful book. But moving on, speaking of Wonder Woman, as a matter of fact, all right, so then we get to one of the craziest stories in the Frank Miller universe. Dark Knight Strikes Again. And here's the thing, this is easily the weakest of the dark. This, and actually, more so than All Star Batman and Robin all got and said, this is the weakest of the books, I think.
Honestly, I think that the reason why this is it it's kind of like retreading the first story, and it's trying to move the story along, um, but showing that the characters are they're basically still defeated, like,
Hmm.
and it's still the thing is when trying to prop up Batman, the other characters have to suffer in some way.
Yeah.
So Clark, he's basically down and out. He's giving up, he's sulking and everything like that. Diana, she's trying to be the voice of reason, but she's also frustrated and she's, you know, still written as Frank Miller, who writes her as kind of
Hmm.
like this abrasive and, tough as nails type woman. And then you have the other characters that's just kind of outlandish type and exaggerated of amidst of all the chaos. So, but even with that, with this story, and specifically Clark and Diana's, I did not know that that was like 14 pages.
Yeah, they have sex for so long, and the funny part is that Frank. I think this is where the whole idea that if they have sex, mountains are broken apart and like natural disasters happen. I think this is where that came from.
That is where it comes from. And the thing
Jesus.
is, again, this is how you know Twitter X does not read anything before 1986, I would say,
Hmm.
because Clark and Diana's relationship, even if it wasn't just like completely like official, they still have had teases in pre-crisis. Then post-crisis, it was going to be an official thing until burning off his, you know, Superman has to be this all-American rah-rah type person. And that was that. So you get this, and well, Kingdom Come, they have like 5 kids. So of course they, do what they do, like little rabbits, and that's
Super
that.
rabbits.
Yeah. So you get to this book, it's 2001. Um, Frank, he has basically always let it be known that he prefers Clark and Diana because he says, I believe it was an interview where he said it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
Clark um being with Diana, the the fact that he's a superhero and they are supers and they do things that are um exceeding the normal, you know, that is what you want to see. That is the life that they should have, is, living beyond the ordinary.
Hmm.
And it made sense. Yes, of course, they should. Clark and Diana, even with going back to Soul's book, they do the same normal things that a couple would do. They have their questionings about their relationship. They have their insecurities. They have meet the uh meet the family. Clark fights with her brother. The brother doesn't like, him, the boyfriend.
You don't know
Um,
that much about me, do you?
right. You have the sister that's kind of crushing on the boyfriend. You have all this dysfunction that we would have in reality, family drama. Their date nights, sometimes with work. You have it where you're working overtime. In reality, as a human, you work overtime and you're late for a date or something like that. Um, Grant Morrison said it too, that Clark, when he's walking Crypto, he's not just walking his dog on a sidewalk, in a neighborhood or something like that. He's walking his dog in outer space, but he's still walking his dog.
Hmm.
You know, that is the kind of things that makes the audience interested and resonate in a way of, yeah, we know that it's fantasy and we know that of course we can't walk our dogs in space, but it's still that you're putting realism and the fantastical together, and it creates just what they are supposed to be, these fictional characters that live beyond, and that is why we love them. So with this story, or with this scene,
Oh, jeez.
so Clark is sulking, and he feels, beat down by Bruce, and he's trying to protect his family, but also, especially with Lex and the government and stuff, and he's given up. So Diana, she's telling him, yeah, they get a little, like, she punches him, and she's like, "Where's the man that um took me as his prize, that um took my heart?" And then they just go buck wild.
Didn't you do a follow-up to this as a Tonight chapter?
I basically
Kind of?
rewrote it.
Yeah.
I basically rewrote it because upon reading this, so there was, I think it was a Tumblr post, but a Lois fan, she claimed that the context, she took it out of context of Diana saying that he threw her down and took her as his prize.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, no, that's not at all what happened. It was basically, it's basically as in Amazon, Diana, and of course, we're going with this version of Diana. She wants a man, that can keep up with her, that can challenge her. But at the same time, we know Superman, he isn't going to do that. So he's going to be still respectful of her, but he's going to show her his.
It's going to be assertive.
Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, still be respectful. And she loved that.
Course.
And the fact that she, obviously, if Diana was being, assaulted or whatever, she would, beat him up.
Oh, Clark would be dead.
Yeah, yeah. So to try to put that in this narrative, it just, no, it didn't sit right, and especially within the context of the whole scene, and there's the thing is that Diana,
and then we get more. Wait, we get more. Here's some more stuff. Like there's the tidal wave sinking an aircraft carrier.
And the thing is, with this part of people saying that, Clark and Diana, they created natural disasters and thousands of people died. No one died. They just like shook the earth a little bit. Natural stuff happened just like any other time. It happens, but no one died. And also, the thing is with this, with them thinking that Clark and Diana being together caused natural, these disasters or people dying. Clark, he turned back time for Lois. Wouldn't you think that, that would disrupt something,
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that scene in the Superman movie where he goes back in time to bring Lois back, because that is the biggest amount of BS I have ever seen. And I'm like, first off, that's not how that works. Second off, I'm like, to see Superman so collapse over a woman he's not even dating. It'd be one thing if he was like married to Lois and then she died. I could understand him doing like drastic things, but you just met her.
But even still, even with doing drastic things for Lois, I don't care if you are married to her. It's the fact that Clark goes into being a tyrant. He does things that are very unethical. Even if you want to talk about like Clark and Diana making tidal waves or whatever, okay, in the Rebirth drowned arc.
Oh yeah.
He admitted that he took Lois all the way to the fortress to, keep her safe. But he knew that he let thousands drown just to save her.
I love
So,
how the Twitter fans conveniently ignore those parts.
yeah. And so I'm like, okay, within that thousand, you know that there were probably children.
Mm-hmm.
And just the thought of that, like and for Batman to be like, I understand. No, Batman, he would not go for that. If you are going for Clark sacrificing thousands, and within that thousands is possibly with children, but both of them are being hypocrites because if we're going with DC's everything happened, so sacrifice. Diana killing Max Lord. She killed him to save billions. But
And then, of course, the writers had to say, "Oh, because of this, Batman and Superman want nothing to do with her." And I'm like, "What?"
yeah, right. But it's okay for them to do very questionable things that get thousands, or more killed, and especially for Lois, that
Yeah,
I
everyone has to love. I hate when people also call her the most important character in DC. I'm like,
or
no,
the First
no.
Lady. I'm like,
Oh
when is
God,
she the
no,
First Lady?
no. It's just because she was like create. She was also created in Action Comics, but she was a B word in Action Comics, as a matter
I
of
mean,
fact.
action. So of course, you learned a lot with the DC documentary,
Hmm.
and even with us, researching, and we're seeing that Action Comics was actually like an anthology. So it was a lot of characters created within that book.
Hmm.
So she's not actually the first female. I wouldn't say. I would say, yeah, sure, she's known, but whatever other female was in that book is still the first. So, that's pretty much my logic of it. Um, and yeah, and she doesn't sell. She isn't marketable to be the first lady of anything. And
There's no merch because she's the most unoriginal character ever. She's just journalist B, and I'm like, I've seen some people cosplay as Lois, but they always have a Superman with them because otherwise it makes no sense.
they, when they try to cosplay into Lois, it's basically like gender bent Clark
That's what
because
it is.
is like they have on the black pencil skirt and the white shirt with glasses. Like Lois never wore glasses, so you're basically, yeah, you're gender bent Clark. Um, and
It
in
just
her
astounds it.
costume,
Uh,
even
yeah,
even
mhm.
uh, even with Tom King with the double date and having them switch costumes, like she's wearing. First of all, her dress was tacky,
But
the design,
beyond
but
that, the
that's not a
funny part.
costume.
Yes, my point is that so Selena switches with Lois. Selena's not in a costume now.
Yeah, the whole
How does
thing.
that work?
Yeah, the whole thing of them being in costume, that wasn't a costume. That was just a random dress. So, Lois being a reporter, she's not a hero. She's not in costume. She's just wearing regular women's clothing. So, we're trying to making her like the exception to the rule type thing, and all logic going out the window. I really just don't agree with it. And so many stories have suffered from this type of, storytelling.
Yeah. So before we move on to All Star Batman and Robin, I just want to draw attention to a humorous detail that I didn't notice until right now. I love how the shark is just watching them make out. He just happens to swim by, like, what?
And not only that, but like
And
Diana
she
says,
instantly
like,
knows I'm pregnant again. I'm like, wow.
yeah, being introduced to Laura too within this book is very interesting because she's 17 years old or she just, I believe Diana says that she just turned 17. And it's kind of like, you know, I wish that we were able to see a little bit of how Laura, had to be hidden. But
Maybe we could see that as a flashback in book 4.
right. Or I I mean, I
Because
know it,
honestly, what I would love to see is a Superman Wonder Woman book in this that traces their relationship from All Star Batman and Robin, like shows how they grow to love each other.
and exactly, because I mean, with going with Superman Year One and seeing like how Diana randomly comes up,
Shows up.
and also, I don't know, it would be interesting if Miller could do a Wonder Woman Year One and kind of give her perspective, um, just to fill it all in, to see how did she react to meeting Clark? How did she decide that even though she doesn't trust men, how did she, you know, become a member of the Justice League?
And fall
Um,
in love with the most powerful of them.
and even right, and even with becoming a mother, I would love to see like the initial reaction that she's, pregnant and then having a daughter. So now, and if Hippolyta was still alive or something like that, that reaction too. And also it's the fact that Clark can be on the Amazonia island. Like how did that even come about?
So, real quick, as we start this book, I want to show you this. Have you ever seen the size of the fold out on All Star Batman and Robin that's of the Batcave?
No, I don't think so.
Look at how huge this thing is. And it's Jim Lee art of the Batcave, but it's like 6 pages long.
Wow.
It's all Jim Lee art of the Batcave. So I'm like, I'm not complaining. It's a little ostentatious, but that is Frank Miller. So here you go. But so
I mean,
this is the most crazy book I think I've read in a while. But I do like when Superman and Wonder Woman kiss. There's Plastic Man. He turned into a heart-shaped balloon.
and then you have, of course, our bestie, Hal Jordan, kind of being the instigator and
I love.
and edging things on a little bit. Um, but yeah, this is basically Batman at his worst as younger and more exaggerated, mean, very psychotic. And to have Dick Grayson, I
Wait,
mean,
Brit. So you're telling me it makes you insane if you light people on fire, then have sex with Black Canary right next to them?
that was the most.
I was like, what the hell am I reading?
I mean, this honestly, if this was animated, I don't know. I think it's even too much for even anime.
Oh no, whoa.
Or no, no,
Let's not
I
go
take that
that
back.
far, Brit.
I take that back. Actually, it would fit perfectly with
It would fit
anime.
perfect with some of the
It,
stuff that was being described to me on the last Comics League Dark. I'm like,
you, honestly, Strikes Again, that scene, that would go perfect in
oh
anime
yes.
form.
That would be an anime if anything. But see, with this one, there were some great moments though, like when the Batman's fighting Green Lantern, he paints an entire room yellow, and then Hal goes, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
And even he's gold. It is kind of
He's
like
gold, and then he offers Hal lemonade.
this. Honestly, it just feels like Frank Miller was just having fun with the characters. It doesn't feel
Which,
like
hey, I'm like, you know what? Fair enough. And it's Jim Lee art, so can you really complain?
right. It's just like a parody of these characters, and it's to just have fun, not to take it too seriously. He's not trying to, within this, he's not really trying to make a statement. It's just, you know, just going crazy. How far can he take the exaggeration of these characters? And even with Diana, again, she's always on Clark to be a man. Like, man up. And even with them being younger here, how she, saying your people. And when she said your people, she's talking about man's world, America, whatever. And honestly, I just thought that. She says, your people here, but then within Master Race or um, Strikes Again, his people are the people of Kandar, and of course Diana and Laura too. But he kind of starts gravitating more towards his Kryptonian like roots again.
Sort of. Sort of. But all in all, with All Star, this is one of those stories where it's reviled, but actually, you actually helped me see this in a new way. These are basically the Justice League as Batman sees them. So actually,
Exactly.
that makes it makes the story a little more palatable when I think about it. And plus, because it's kind of random with like them arguing and then them kissing. But I love after she leaves, Green Lantern's like, "The hell just happened?" And then Superman goes, "She's a really nice girl."
I mean, honestly, I have, at first it was kind of like, oh, this relationship is kind of something. But then again, with putting everything together, it's like, of course, it is supposed to be this complicated, like, it's not going to be, what we expect is like this fairy tale, sunshine type relationship, especially with how they are characterized. And with this being, I think, yeah, Frank did say that this is a Batman story. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, he's going to have a perspective of the characters, being a little bit below Batman. But at the same time, that gave, an understanding of, oh, okay, so yeah, your Batman is loony. So his idea of the other characters is going to be just as loony. And it just works. It's having fun again. That is why
Yeah,
you don't take this serious. Um, but within Master Race, though, he gets a little
speaking of
bit
that,
more serious.
there you go. And Master Race was actually it's one of the most underrated books DC puts out. And the thing about it, these characters do act pretty consistently, honestly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that Frank Miller is very consistent, more consistent than how DC's main verse is supposed to be. With, I know that communication is awful with
Mm-hmm.
editorial and with the writers, but that is why he didn't want his universe within the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even Mark Waid, he is doing World's Finest right now, the
Mm-hmm.
uh, prequel of Kingdom Come, um, Magog's origin. And it's kind of like, well, you wrote the book, you wrote the story. It's not,
Supposedly.
it's, it's Alex's story, the whole overall details and everything like that. But Wade just basically gave him the dialogue and helped him plot it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But Wade admitted on an interview that he uh, mixed up, I guess, a character's death.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, okay, you wrote this story and you didn't go back to make sure that you do this right. Of how, like, how are you going to create a prequel to a story
Well, Brit, you
and you
see,
mess up something?
that will require them actually trying. By the way, another detail I just noticed. I love this panel because look at the smile that John has as like there's all this slaughter around him, and this fits very much in Frank Miller's universe with that.
Yes.
I love that he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy." Oh, wait, I'm trying to actually zoom in here, but yeah, look at look at that smile. That's great. As his mom is decapitating Kryptonians.
Yes, John is like, my mom is.
He's like that. He's like, wee.
And that is so, like, this is why I love this story and I love this universe, because again, you can have so much fun with this. And like, yeah, for Diana to have a baby on her back, throughout the whole thing, she fights a minotaur and then she breastfeeds her baby. It's like, how, like, that is truly a mother.
Which, by the way,
And
it's not it's just a centaur. It's a centaur mixed with a minotaur.
oh, yeah, I mean, just to know that her baby is going to be okay too while she fights is amazing. And then you have where Laura, I believe that this is 3 years, which doesn't really make sense. So I don't think it's 3 years. I would say probably a year after Strikes Again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it would make sense. I'm like, I know Diana doesn't, she isn't pregnant for 3 years, so that wouldn't make sense. And John is still like, he seems like a newborn. So, yeah, I would put this in the time slot that is a year after Strikes Again.
Mm-hmm.
And with Laura, so now she's 18. And she's basically trying to figure out who she is. You can tell that she knows her strength as a Kryptonian. She wants her, to be with Clark and to learn from him. But at the same time, she says her stubbornness and her attitude is from Diana as an Amazon. And she's a proud Amazon at the same time. So she's struggling and going back and forth, with who she is and kind of like what path she wants to take and trying to balance, who she is out. And you don't have that with these kid characters, John in Lois and Clark's John. He is basically just a carbon copy of Clark. And what's so funny is that there's a tweet that's saying that John is like a missed opportunity because he's Lois's son, so he is supposed to be like Golden Age Superman, fighting for the corrupt. And it's like, well, Lois, she doesn't really have anything to give to John, um, you know, and to be like Golden Age Superman, he would be a carbon copy of Golden Age Superman. He wouldn't have
Yeah.
any type of that has nothing to do with Lois. So to say that John is Lois' son, honestly, that means nothing. But he doesn't bring anything interesting. He doesn't have any struggles. Even with the age up struggle, they brushed it off as well. Bendis brushed it off as saying that because of who his parents are, he's not traumatized.
That's not how trauma works, Bendis.
Right. And he also said that he's biracial. I'm like, well, you're really trying to
you're being very like loose with the word doesn't mean the way that you think it means.
Right. He's still very much what he looks like, to the average person. He's very much not biracial is the actual term of it. And uh, just trying to find this certain thing for John to make him interesting, that is a struggle.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing. Here's why John exists, so they can have a bisexual Superman. That's why he exists.
Honestly, yeah. When he was 10 and the whole Super Sons thing was starting up, it was fans and even an interviewer, which is so funny that a lot of the comic sites and um these certain reviewers or interviewers or whatever that get exclusive, they are basically silent or gone now. Like they've moved away from DC.
Mm-hmm.
And um it's just been a drastic shift since Rebirth. And when John was first introduced, this certain interviewer, he was pushing for John to grow up to be um bisexual or to be the gay Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that his to think back on that, I think that yeah, during his just very conception or whatever, that was the plan. And it pretty much has backfired because the way it was handled, it was rushed. And even Tom Taylor, he basically said that this was a PR move. So you don't really have the story to invest in. You have John aged up, which honestly, he aged like a dog. He
That's
did,
true.
you had in Convergence, basically their whole thing was when questioned, it was how can Lois be pregnant when if this is post-crisis Superman, that was one of their biggest conflicts. That was basically straining their marriage or whatever like that, that Kryptonian DNA and human DNA cannot mix. Even with Connor, he still had like DNA problems. Um,
That's part of why he didn't have all of Clark's powers.
yeah. So all of that conflict and challenge, you took it away by saying, "Oh well, it's just comics." So yeah, all of a sudden she can be pregnant, and Clark lost his powers or he was depowered. Yeah,
But
but
that
that
doesn't
doesn't change
change.
his
Exactly. It doesn't change DNA.
right. So you have that. And then later he's 10 years old. And it's like, okay, how where in that you actually see him grow. Then you have Reborn of trying to force him into continuity and to now introduce him to Damien. Then you have where honestly you haven't seen John with the Superman supporting cast. You haven't seen him with Jimmy. You haven't seen him with Perry, and Perry is supposedly his godfather.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like where is all this? Um, it's just even with the Kents, they tried to have them interact, but again, there's no true investment because the Kents were dead. And then you have them now alive, but they barely show up. And with the interaction that you try to have with them, it doesn't feel organic at all. So just with John's character, period, he's very, you know, pointless. And so is Lizzie too. Um, Damien, besides trying to make it seem like Morrison's retcon for Talia, that was very unnecessary. Honestly, Damien is the only kid character that's actually interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is valuable because Batman has had Robin. So with him having a biological Robin, it makes sense. Clark and Diana, unless it is a Kingdom Come situation, them having biological kids in continuity, it, that doesn't make any sense for them. Because, and also they live for so long. It's kind of like, yeah, it can only work really as a Kingdom Come situation.
Yeah. So back to Dark Knight 3, I will say the other favorite scene I have from this is when so Bruce shows back up after being healed because he was thrown into a Lazarus pit. And Diana calls and goes, I just want to let you know that like the Kryptonians have declared war on Amazonia, and then Superman just whooshes out. He's like, nope, gotta go.
And then you have it where she's covered in blood and
Yes.
they kiss. It's like, and then you have still little John. He's smiling. He has no idea really what's going on. He's
Even
just
his
happy.
bassinet has blood on it. And
He's
I love Diana. I love Diana. She's like, "It's good to see you, lover. It's good to see you this way, like covered in blood." Jeez.
I think I think she meant like to see you like alive and
Mhm.
not covered in ice because in the
Okay.
beginning of the book he's just in his fortress covered in ice
I'd
and
like to know how he got from part 3 to this is what I want to know.
I think that well I don't know well maybe it's because Captain Marvel died so he
Hmm.
probably felt that is why I don't think that when it says 3 years I really don't that doesn't make sense. I really just think that this is probably like a year out from
Probably.
that story. And yeah, he's again back to his sulking, and it's the fact that just because they won that battle, the world or Lex, the government or whatever, is still, after him. And like he said in Strikes Again, that they are always watching him. So with him being with Diana and then finding out that they have a daughter, now finding out that they have a son, that puts a lot of, pressure on him. But the ending battle of that he didn't want to fight and it seemed like he was being knocked down. But then at the end when he's finally basically he's, had enough. And when he shows that he's been holding back the whole time.
I think this is when Bruce goes, "He let me win."
Yeah, it's finally the realization that Clark isn't the pushover you think he is. He's trying because he knows his strength. It's like I'm going to think I'm going to let you think that you won, but you haven't
It would mean
until
so
you
much to
keep
him.
pushing. Right. It's like you keep pushing and pushing and then I'm going to show you, my truth. Then at the end, I guess that there's also like little specials. So you have where there's a little special like a 6-pager or whatever,
Hmm.
and it's Laura and Diana, and Diana is trying to, talk to her because she knows that she's going through her phase of trying to understand herself. And Diana basically admits that she failed as a mother because, she's tried to protect her. And it very much mirrors Diana and Hippolyta's relationship, how Hippolyta shelters Diana, how she, you know, tries to act a little tough with her and like no means no type thing, or, telling her what to do without truly explaining why she feels that way. And so that relationship translates to Diana and Laura until you finally see that opening that Laura wanted from Diana, and Diana, you know, realizing that she needed to do better. So what she does, it seems like that she let Clark take the kids to Metropolis and sort of just try to give them a little bit of normalcy in a sense, for them to learn how that they don't need to be hidden away. And even in Strikes Again, Diana did say that too. She said that, she didn't want Laura to just be, hidden on the island all her life. She wanted her to, be open. So yeah, I really want that story to be told. Like, if we can have the fourth installment show Clark, Diana, and John and Laura together as a family.
That would be really cool. Then we get to, all right, so the Last Crusade, and really what this is, because apparently what the story tells is the death of Jason Todd, and after Jason Todd died, that's when Batman retired until Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, okay. So that is it's just a tie-in to put another piece to the puzzle. Putting
It
it
is
all
that.
together.
It shows a little bit more of Batman and Catwoman's relationship because they were together at this point, and they kind of hinted at that in DKR, but this one really like shows no, they were together. It's because what had happened was in the story, Jason was going through kind of like he didn't think anything he did was good enough because Batman was always critiquing him and trying to figure out ways to make him be better. So it's the most tragic thing in the world because the Joker keeps like killing people, and what they end up doing at the end is that Jason overhears Batman and Alfred talking, and Alfred said, "You think he'll ever be ready?" And then Bruce says, "No." Then Jason leaves, so he doesn't hear Bruce say, "But he will be soon." And so Jason died thinking Batman had never thought he was a good enough Robin.
Oh, I mean, that is consistent to how Jason is in, every iteration. But honestly, that's a little sadder than.
It's a really good story. So yeah, they did that. It's a very much more Batman focused issue, but it's actually really fun. It's a really good read. So then we get to the Golden Child, and by the way, that design for Wonder Woman looks so good.
As the queen, yes. Like,
good Lord, that is gorgeous.
If Grandpa could, like, take over in a sense and, like, make, I guess, he understands Miller's verse. He understands it, and he actually wrote like a short poem for Laura and the way she is, and Darkseid. I think it was in the perspective of Darkseid, and to tie into the story, and just the way that he just even described Laura and John too. And I love the way that him and Frank called John a baby Buddha, and that he's like this mellow, he's this entity that combines magic and science together, and you don't know, like, he's unpredictable, and he's this little 3-year-old that's so powerful
and so
with
intelligent too. That's the other thing.
And honestly, he reminds me of an anime called Psyche K.
Oh
And
God, we're bringing up anime again.
yeah, yes. You honestly, you would love that anime because it's a slice of life. It's very good. It's nothing, it's not too much of anything. It's cool.
I'll check it out.
And it's on Netflix. Um and as a baby, you know, DC doesn't have a character like that. For a 3-year-old to take on Darkseid,
Hmm.
that is something
And defeat
again,
Darkseid. That's the key thing here.
that is something that's so unique and so like why wouldn't you capitalize on this? And you have these a sibling duo, and you're basically switching the roles of having an older sister, this daughter, Supergirl, that has her father's powers and her mother's too, but mainly, showing her father's power, but she has the attitude of her mother, who's a warrior, a fighter. That kind of combination is just so interesting, and you do get invested, whether you like her or you hate her, or in a sense of like you hate to love her. That is the kind of character that you want.
Yeah.
With John, again, 3-year-old that has nuclear vision, that's smart, that can, you know, go toe to toe with Darkseid when he's he has this perspective of life and he sees the world. I love when they have John turn upside down
Hmm.
because he has like this very unique vision of the world, you know, being this like super intelligent baby.
Like right there.
Yeah, being this yeah, this super intelligent toddler or whatever, and just seeing the world in such a unique perspective. And Grandpa's art is just so
Oh,
beautiful,
oh,
so
oh.
breathtaking.
It's like in his current Batman story too. It's like my God. It's like he even made those. He was even marketed with those really dope like trailers for the books. Like this dude knows what he's doing. Right. The other thing I love about Laura's design. So she's wearing a Superman T-shirt, but on the back she's wearing a Wonder Woman jacket.
Yes, I love that because it's so simple and casual, but it to have their symbols is just so it's still something about it that is so powerful though.
Hmm.
And with the promotion of Golden Child, when I it was a promo of the future is young. That was a tagline.
Hmm.
And that tagline and the of Carrie and Laura and John became the face of like this positive um the positivity that I believe it was in Tokyo.
Hmm.
They were having a protest,
Hmm.
and those younger people, um, they felt so inspired to fight for what they believed in. I will have to look that up. I think it was in Tokyo, but I'm
Hmm.
not quite sure. But yeah, and to see that even Grandpa, he said it was so unexpected for his tagline to resonate, for this book to resonate with, you know, the younger people who are protesting for equality, who are protesting, for a better future.
Hmm.
And again, DC just kind of like totally let it go and not um keep pushing forward with this. That even though um Miller, he's, doing his own thing. You still had Grandpa, who was very much hyped, that he could have continued on with the story. And yeah,
He
his
can.
Batman.
And like you said, he understands the Millerverse. So if anyone were to continue the work without Frank, I would be fine with Grandpa doing it.
Yeah. And another thing is I love the color of Laura's hair.
Yes, I was about to say that it's a very, very vivid blue, and it works for the character because in the past time she was drawn, like even in like in Dark Knight 3 or Dark Knight 2, it's not as like vividly like neon blue as it is here, and I think it works. Well, the whole book is colored so beautifully, but yeah, I love that hair color.
Yeah. And it makes her unique. And that's the thing with John and Lizzie. Lizzie, um, she's her Trinity costume is very plain. It looks, well, it's supposed to be like a combination of all the Wonder Girls, certain, you know, aspects or whatever, and putting them all together. But it's putting them together in such a bland way.
Yeah,
And
it's not unique at all. This is unique because it's more casual, but it's still a superhero outfit.
right. And um just the signature that Laura has is her blue hair. And that is just something that is just so, that stands out. John. The only thing John is that he doesn't wear a cape,
Hmm.
and trying to make the electric blue powers, honestly, like that wasn't so much as interesting for Clark. So it's not very
No.
interesting for him either. So that isn't really anything unique because again, you're taking from Clark and just trying to put it with John as if it was a new thing for him and just it's just not
And see if it
working.
can work. But I love with this, John, by the way, Laura's like in a standard flight pose, like she's hovering. He's just chilling. He's just chilling.
Right.
I just love that. And even when he's upside down, but his hands are still in
Hands in his
in his
pocket.
jacket. He's like this the entire time, and I'm like, yeah, this dude is badass.
And the fact that all he has on is a gold rain jacket,
Yeah.
like that's it.
Not even a superhero thing, no insignia, just a rain jacket.
But and the fact that it's gold, honestly,
Hmm.
it maybe it signifies the lasso of, being gold. I don't
Hmm.
know, but that is something that maybe that signifies for Diana because he is more of with being the baby Buddha, that
Hmm.
it's going towards more mythical. So yeah, that could be something, but yeah, just it can be so simple for Clark and Diana's kids. A simple design can stand out though, especially from the artist. And not only that, but Grandpa also he posted some sketches of trying to combine the Superman and Wonder Woman logo. So I think that probably would have been on the back of Laura's jacket. Would have been neat, or it would have been for John.
Hmm. Either
And
way is
that,
fine.
yeah, honestly, the one he colored, I like that because it gives a very unique take on the S,
Yeah,
but you can
I
still
agree.
see the Wonder Woman logo. So yeah, you can have those combinations, and it's just so interesting. Honestly, if DC they have a gold mine with this verse. I don't know if I would want it animated, adapted with animation because it's so cheap now.
Well,
And with
we
trying
kind of
to,
had this live action with the Snyderverse.
yeah, um, And the fact that Snyder, he wants to actually adapt, you know, the story without
Like
adding
legit.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to legit adapt Dark Knight Returns. So I'm like, oh hells yes.
Yeah, and he visually he will conquer it, honestly.
If there's one
Um
director that could do it, because if you saw BVS was basically Dark Knight Returns light, and that was practically Dark Knight Returns.
and honestly, he had to do was not have Death of Superman because of course
Yeah.
Death of Superman drags down anything it
Mm-hmm.
seems. So, skip
Thanks,
that,
Jurgens.
right. Um but yeah, with this verse, if they had a higher budget, anime this would have been, absolute, because you have a natural new generation for the Trinity. And especially with had Clark and Bruce as Batman and Superman, and then you had Wonder Woman. But now you have John in Diana's place, and then you have Super Laura for Clark's place, and then you have Carrie for Batwoman. So you switch the genders, and that's something that is so natural, a natural take. But with trying to have Lizzie, John, and Damien, that first of all they are in totally different generations, and you're trying to put them together, and they don't fit because they haven't had a natural growth together.
Plus, add
It,
on
it
to it that the whole Generation S name is stupid.
oh my god, that I mean, and then want to call them too.
Oh god.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, I don't know. Generation S, and it's supposed to be Generation Hope, but yeah, and for them to kind of say that Clark, Diana, and Bruce was privileged,
Oh
they weren't
god.
privileged at all. Diana,
No.
even with Diana, she was still like this lonely, whichever way you want to go, whether she was the only child on the island, she was still very lonely. With um a New 52 origin of her having Amazons kind of her age on the island, she was still bullied, so she was still lonely, and she wanted like to explore the world, and then coming to a new world, she wasn't so much as accepted and understanding,
Mhm.
certain things, and still felt that loneliness. Clark, his whole literally world blew up. You know,
Mhm.
he's the last, of his kind, and then Bruce lost his parents. How is that privileged? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
they have risked their lives to save people. I'm sorry, that ain't privilege. That's like because the word privilege is thrown around too much on the internet, so I'm just like, eh. But moving on. But speaking of Superman, then we get to the final book. All right. So this was one of the books that was like kind of like I get what he was coming from, but it's kind of odd the way this is written. So it's Superman Year One, and it's his take on Superman. It's still relatively consistent with Superman. The problem is Superman goes from girl to girl to girl in this book, and he acts like he's in love with each one.
I, I think that this book was supposed to be 4 issues,
That makes
but
sense.
it was cut down, of course, editorial. Um, and what Miller, I think what he was trying to do was basically kind of speed run through Superman's origins, of course. Um, and there were time skips. It was just the fact that yeah, you don't really have that closure to his relationships. Like Elena, he he wanted to marry her, and but he goes off, and then
Never
she's
mention
not
again.
mentioned.
And then he falls in love with a mermaid, which this was my first exposure to Lori Ramirez. Is apparently it's long established that like it when Clark was in college, he met a mermaid, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
which totally,
that sounds comic booky enough.
yeah, that, and honestly, that relationship pretty much the it was his introduction to someone being different, uh, different just as him, but
Hmm.
it was in a sense a not with all the family, war drama or whatever, but it's Romeo and Juliet, and with them, she's, wanting to go back home to water, and he's on land, that wouldn't have lasted. But it was the fact of, again, that was his first exposure to being with someone that understood, you know, of being different and how lonely that feels, how you have to hide a part of yourself. And, you know, that would have been very interesting to explore. But he had a little fun, but with Miller's version, he had a little fun. I think he humiliated Poseidon, I think.
Yeah, which was that was also a weird version of Poseidon because apparently Poseidon wanted his daughter to take her mother's place in every sense, to quote the book, and I was like, ah,
They
there's the Frank Mellerisms right there.
oh, I mean, that is part of Greek mythology of,
Yeah,
you
I know.
know,
It's very anime. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
you are not gonna let that go.
No, I'm not. After the descriptions I heard last Friday, no.
I mean, I get it because yeah, it is. Like I said, that world is very yeah, yeah. But yeah, so you have in book 2 and 3, part of book 3, you have where he's not really in a relationship with Lois, and also just um within this whole timeline or whatever. Lois fans want to say that, is Lois, or, in every universe and every, but
Not this
honestly,
one.
yeah, not this one. Even if it was something, it was very brief, because still within the time of All Star, he was having his little complicated relationship with Diana. And obviously, they have a daughter that's, 17. So it's 17 years within All Star and Strikes Again. So where in that does he have a relationship with Lois? And also, have a relationship with Diana, and she gets pregnant. So yeah, within this, even if like I said, if he did have a relationship with Lois, it was very brief, and that's pretty much shown even in year one, that it, it was a non-existent relationship apparently, and it was only pretty much talked through. Um, but he meets with Diana while fighting Batman, and then he calls her his queen at the end of the book.
Which
So
I'm like, that is a little rushed.
that well, in an interview, Frank Miller, he did say that they were going to have a moment that was kind of maybe a spiritual successor of Strikes Again.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh god.
But obviously it didn't happen. Um, I really feel like, yeah, they cut down some stuff and cut an issue away because it sounded like he was supposed to have 4 books,
Hmm.
but it's only 3, and yeah, this it's rushed, and as you read it, you can tell that something is missing. Like, yeah,
Exactly. It feels like somewhere in there, there was supposed to be a fourth book, which I would love if they released like the Miller cut of this book and it like completely fixes it like the Snyder cut did.
this is why I would. This is why like the Last Crusade, there should be, little mini specials, even if because Miller is so busy with other things, if he could have like some other writer like Grandpa that can, you know, just do those certain one-shot specials to fill in the blanks a little bit more. Because again, with trying to have Miller and Jim Lee, obviously All Star, Batman and Robin, the sequel, or the continuation is going to take forever and a day to finally come out.
It's going to take longer than Doomsday Clock did. Jeez. So
Right.
let me ask you this as we end the slideshow. Which one of the Frank Miller DC books is your favorite?
I would say Master Race
Really?
because you really have the characters more in line with it. It's not so much as the exaggeration, and they are more in line to really be it's a more serious take of the conflict,
Hmm.
and you also get more of a little bit more answers and in depth of the relationships, and also just the redemption too of uh Clark, and how in his perception is that he wasn't a pushover, he isn't being knocked down by Batman, like how so many people have thought, is that Clark was holding back, and that this story is so much more of a Superman story and even a Wonder Woman story, and in to put their family together to make you want to read about Clark, Diana, Laura, and John, and read that dysfunction of a family that they have. Um, so yeah, and then the second will be Golden Child because I love John.
Hey, it's Baby Buddha John. I love how you call him that. With me, it's yeah, I gotta agree with you. It's Master Race because that is the most. First off, it's epic. It's like the Justice League versus Kryptonians, which I'm like, why don't they do that story that often? But it's second is Returns is the regular Dark Knight Returns book because of how that affected the Batman character and stuff. But really, it's essentially the way I see it, it's Franklin and Azzarello, and DC basically told them, "You can have anyone you want, go nuts." Plus, you have the funny moments of like John smiling as he's in the backpack as his mother slaughters Kryptonians. That will never not be funny.
Right. I mean, you just have like this baby that's like his mother is going out, just going on an adventure, whatever, and she's, fighting, and you're just happy. You're just like this happy baby that's so unaffected by anything right now. And honestly, that is why he's just so chill and just flying or going upside down or whatever. Because he's like, I done seen everything. My mom, she 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 fights and she trains or whatever. I've seen my mom and my sister go head to head, you know, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and then my sister is she's going through her teenage phase or whatever. So yeah, I'm just this little chill, just this little chill little dude that can. honestly,
that can
the
fight
way
gods, honestly.
and the way he's drawn to as he's in the air is kind of like he's standing on air. You know,
Hmm.
he's like you said, he Laura, she has the she's drawn and then she's flying, you know. But John is drawn as like he's walking on air, you know, just like that is just such, I don't know, that image of Laura and John together is just always been my favorite. It was my wallpaper um for a while too because I don't know, just that sibling duo. I guess DC has I think it's Wally, yeah, Wally West and Linda Park's
Hmm.
kids. They're twins. I guess you have them. Um I cannot think of any. You have the Wonder Twins,
Hmm.
and even the Super Twins, but again, they don't have any type of character really. Um, with bringing them from War World, you would think that they would, you know, uh, have a story of the trauma that they went through, of, actually seeing them go through going to the school and being bullied and stuff like that.
And of course, Lois has to be Lois.
Exactly. And them trying to adjust to living now in Metropolis. But all of that is glossed over. But with Frank Miller and his world, you see it's not so much as glossed over, it's just the fact that it's big time skips and but there's an intent to fill in those blanks. So with Laura, you see that though that she's going through the teenage phase of again trying to understand and balance her identity of in her place. You see John just chilling out or whatever. You see Carrie, she's now becoming Batwoman. These characters are growing. With the super twins that Johnson introduced, well, they were supposed to be just replacements for John because they refused to de-age him. So that's
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So they don't have the character that you need to invest in. Um but yeah, this world, all in all, is something that DC should invest in because it's so much that you can do. And Frank Miller, um, even with the controversy, even though Twitter X is, you know, they do what they do and rant all the time, he can still sell a book, and especially this verse.
Yeah, as far as I know, the sales of this universe have always been pretty solid. So it's not like a story that it's like a universe that sometimes sells but it doesn't sell. But no, this for the most part always sells really well, which I'm happy for because it's kind of funny, Brit. We support all of the books that sell. Isn't that interesting?
Right. I mean, if you're gonna, well, if try to say we're not fans, of course, you're not getting our support at all.
Well,
But yeah,
yeah.
the books that, yeah, but the books that we find interesting, we put our open our wallets to it, and or your digital wallet or your physical wallet, and we actually go out and support the books because we want them to keep going. But if
That's
you're
the
like
that's the
Tamaki,
way that's the way the industry actually works. Is that if because DC's a business, DC ain't some charity where. See, here's the thing. I understand that at with the whole Super Sons book, if it has an audience, yeah, you could probably keep that moving. But DC is not at the state when they can have low selling books continue. If the sales were better, then yes, you could have like books that go like consistently 12,000 or so and be fine with it. But they're not like that anymore. You can't just do that.
the thing is with the low sellers, and it's not even a shame, but it is what it is. Their low sellers are their more diverse books. And
Yeah.
you are basically walking a line of if you cancel a diverse book, it you will be labeled as a villain, that you don't support representation, you know.
Yeah, that's not the best way. And here's the thing: it's in no way saying that these characters aren't good characters. It's just you have crappy writers that you put on these books, and then when they fail, then that's when the companies make the mistake of saying, okay, so this diverse character didn't sell. I guess diversity doesn't sell.
And that's the thing. No, diversity does sell. That's the thing. If any concept can sell, it's just the fact of the story that's being told, or the writer. It really doesn't even have to do with the writer, because the writer can sell a book. With Okay, Tom Taylor, he sells books. He can sell a book because he knows how to generate, Twitter interest in the most controversial, but it's so superficial and so like meme. He relies on the memes, the Twitter memes, to sell his books. And the fanins and headcanons. But some of his books don't sell, like his Suicide Squad or his Earth 2.
Mm-hmm.
Those characters, you know, with trying to make Lois as a red tornado, with creating Val Zod, you know, these characters don't really resonate with the larger audience, that they are niche characters. Then
Yeah,
you
they don't.
have, but you have John's book that, first of all, it debuted at only like 60K. Then it got like a boost. So it was, I'll say, rounded off about 75K for first issue. And then it dropped like a brick. So they rushed the gimmick coming out of him being bisexual. But the thing is, the headlines, it wasn't Superman's son is bisexual. It was Superman being bisexual.
Yeah, that's why they did it.
So yeah, so you're manipulating the audience, and you know that will bring in some type of the collectors and everything like that. But then once that's all over, it dropped like a brick again. You have Tim Drake. He's bisexual. And his book, showing his relationship with Bernard and everything, that debuted horribly and was basically top 5 of DC's worst selling books.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it got canceled at like issue 10. Then you have the Batgirls, Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown. so many people were asking for the Batgirls book, or asking for them. Again, debuting lower ranking from below the top 50, and it continues to go down in rank, and that was canceled. So yeah, the Twitter X, Tumblr, or whatever, asking for these books, but yet they refuse to support them, is why DC is in the state that it's in.
Yeah, because there'd be one thing if they showed up to it, and at least, hey, SuperWonder fans will show up for even the scraps. That's how desperate it's gotten. It's like if Tom King even gives us just them like hanging out and hugging or something like that, we'll be like, okay, we can take this. We can take this. This is fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact of acknowledging a relationship that has always been there.
Mm-hmm. Just acknowledge us and we'll be fine.
Yeah, is not even the reason why the acknowledgement is important is because, yeah, there has been investment in this relationship, and it's obvious that the relationship is known, and you keep like putting out bait for us as quote unquote the fishes to come and to grab onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And we do. We do. But at the same time, you get that recognition that they said we support the books. We supported Superman and Wonder Woman, when that first came out, that it exceeded expectations of selling over 100K and being in the top 20 for as long as it did, and of course until Tomasi. And the fact that they didn't have any other reason to cancel the book or to change direction or change creative teams was just because they wanted to change direction and kill off New 52 Superman for a concept that not only did below, but didn't even last as long as it did. You had Rebirth that didn't last but around 6 months. You had Super Sons that didn't last either and went below Superman and Wonder Woman's debut. Trinity, the same thing. We've gone through that concept of the Trinity, how superficial it is, and the book, dropped like a brick. Yeah, so, but just like with the Instagram, when that first started, you post the fan arts, you post the comic panels, the video edits, stuff like that. And of course, the way Twitter talks about Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple, you would think that, oh, it's not liked, that it's the worst thing ever,
that was really my feeling when I first got back into the stuff and started the show, was because I was like, is it really just me that thinks he works better with Wonder Woman? Then I found the Diana and Cal Instagram account, funnily enough, and I was like, okay, so it's not just me.
Right, because Twitter it's a big platform, and you have these people that love spreading misinformation. They love spreading lies. And if they can spread that lie that no one likes Superman and Wonder Woman, that is just a Lois and Clark, that is this and that, you will start to believe it. But then when you go outside that Twitter bubble and you see the Instagram page, and it's kind of like, okay, well, wait a minute. how does this page alone have this many followers and engagement? I thought what Twitter said, no one liked this couple, so why is this page so successful? And within the last week or so of Twitter seeing the Instagram page and questioning why does the page have so many followers, it's like, yeah, it's outside your Twitter bubble. It's people, the general audience and other fans that have, different opinions than you do. We're not sheep. And the thing is, like I said before, it was one fan that called Superman and Wonder Woman fans the black sheep or, of fandoms. And at first you would think that is bad, but once you think that, no, the black sheep stands out and follows its own path,
Yeah, I'll
and it's
take it.
unique. Yeah, and it's a unique thing. So I'll take that as something actually and turn around to be something good. Because with seeing the uniqueness that Superman and Wonder Woman represents, that is the message that in reality people are gravitating towards, and they want the diversity, they want the unique to acknowledge, their uniqueness, their heritage. More people are honoring that. More people are, just coming into themselves and being unapologetic, for who they are. And that's exactly what Superman and Wonder Woman represents. With Lois and Clark, you have this where Clark is, like I said, this self-righteous, stiff, galoot type pushover, and there's limitations with Lois. And being predictable because at the end what's going to happen. With Diana, it's more complex with her because she only has one book, just a solo book. She doesn't really have a relationship with a lot of characters. Like, it's kind of like during Rebirth, because of how Clark and Diana's relationship was so basically intertwined that they wanted to separate them, and to the point of separating them even from other characters, where you have Superman isolated in his own world, Diana isolated in her own world, and it's like that's all they could be in. But of course, they tried to put Batman in Superman's world for Damian for John to leech off Damian. But Diana was basically in her own little bubble. And that honestly didn't work because with the shared universe, these characters are supposed to interact. These characters are supposed to grow together. And yes, Clark and Diana's relationship is platonic, but it also has elements of romance. So you can't help but to have that in there at some point. And there's nothing wrong with it. If you feel threatened by the concept, honestly, that's more of the fault of your default concept, which is Lois and Clark.
And it also shows you're not as secure in your ship.
Exactly. And you have where, I mean, how DC has pretty much ruined a lot of their uh, other romantic relationships. You have Batcat, which the whole wedding fiasco.
Oh God.
I mean,
speaking of bait and switch,
right? You had comic shops, decorating their comic shop and having wedding cakes and this whole thing, all of a sudden, all of that promotion that they were doing, you see that a wedding didn't happen. Um, Now you have this back and forth, Chase or Bruce. Now I think he's like, um, I think he's going psycho again, and or Detective Comics. I think he was dead or half dead, and Talia took him somewhere.
Yeah, and then in Batman, he's fighting Zurin Ah, who is in the failsafe robot suit somehow.
Yeah, so you have that going on. Then you have Superman, which is I don't know. I guess they're trying to like do Williamson because he's like stretched thin with all the books that he's trying to write, and he's doing like these very, very short arcs. And even the one that he just hyped up with Clark being like this cowboy or whatever, it's like the adventure started then stopped. It really didn't have everything that he tried to set up. You didn't see any type of resolution, satisfying conclusion. It just happened, and he's on to the next thing. And then Action Comics, taking Johnson off the book. Now they have like no solid writer for the book. It's just like they call it All Star or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they are just doing mini arcs for that book. Then Wonder Woman with King, he's dragging this whole sovereign Wonder Woman versus America thing out, and she's alone. She doesn't have her family. Yes, issue 5 was okay with introducing the Wonder Girls, but you can still tell that it's very distant and off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hopefully issue 7 will be okay. Hopefully.
That's a gamble, Brit. That's a gamble. We'll
I
see what
mean,
happens.
the thing is, he said about it will be a deep dive into their friendship and hardship, and I'm just like, what deep
This could
dive are
go
you
really
talking
good
about?
for us, Brit, or this could go horribly for it. We'll see. But more on that in a future episode. This was a really, 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 really good one, and kind of crazy because I noticed stuff in the Frank Miller books I hadn't seen before. But this was a fun one. So, Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease us for? And by the way, before she does that, but make sure to like, comment, subscribe, drop down your favorite Frank Miller book that's in the DC universe, and also what you thought of like even the ones that you may have not enjoyed. Just in general, drop below your thoughts. So, Britt, anything you want to tease us with?
Right. So I will be posting I finally got a title for Diana having the flu and Clark and Hippolyta taking care of her. That will be posted later this week. More little bits in there of the Afghan story. I want to get that done, and a Valentine's. I have to get that early. A Valentine's one shot. It's a secret, and that is a little tease for the story itself. Yeah, just getting those stories that I am trying to finish up, those chapters, and also we talked about it, of the twist of fate of that
That's a
story.
good one.
Two more.
I promise I'm working on my part of the secret project you and I are working on. I've been really backed up recently.
I know that once you send that to me, I don't know. I'm trying to prepare myself. I'm trying to write these stories so I can prepare myself emotionally. So I'm writing the good stuff, the happy stuff first. And yeah, with the Twist of Fate story, 2 more chapters and that story will be completed.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you about that. So yeah, I'm finishing up those stories to have those done. Even Awaken Desires, that new chapter, and we've talked about that too. What's going on with that? And yeah, it's gonna be a fun time updating these stories and getting them all out because I'm like I said, I have to get done with the happy stuff because I know that the emotional roller coaster we're about to go on with this story that we are building.
Oh, it's gonna be hilarious. So on that note, everyone, stay heroic and remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. See you later.